It came about quite by accident. I got a social media message out of the blue, somebody saying, "Look, I understand you've got a house with some spare bedrooms. I'm coming to Moree for the harvest next week. I cannot find any accommodation. Could I stay with you?" And from Nikita at the beginning, it just grew from there by word of mouth, and here we are.
Yeah, so how long have you been doing this and how does it exactly work? Is it a more casual arrangement or are there formalities in place?
Very casual. Been doing it about 2.5 years now. And during that time, those three bedrooms have been occupied about 80% of the time by different people coming through. There is no lease, there is no bond, there is no notice period. It's very much a share house arrangement in practice.
So how's the experience been for you? What have been some of the benefits?
Look, the benefits have been twofold. Firstly, and most importantly, is socially. I'm a single person, and to have young people in the house has been fantastic. They're different perspectives, they're from all over the world, has given a whole new insight for me in terms of how other cultures and peoples are. And it's quite nice having some people around the house to help as well. The financial part of it is useful as well, but that's in many respects secondary to the social now, although it was quite important when I began.
What about those who have lived with you over those 2.5 years? How have they found it?
Look, they find it good, at least they report that to me, because they come back. And what I find is people who come back to Moree for the harvest, and we have two harvests a year here, it's all regulars now. There's nobody new. It's all people I've had to stay before. And I try and create, and I think I create a home-like environment. We're a home. We're not some commercial accommodation sort of story.
In Moree, there is a need for workers, particularly agricultural workers, but is there enough housing there for the workers to come in?
Look, it varies, particularly when we've had construction projects like Inland Rail, or we've got currently the Newell Highway project for highway strengthening. Housing is short. Rentals are difficult and rentals are expensive. And also, if you're renting full premises yourself, it's a lot more responsibility, particularly the difficulty around short-term rentals and all the ups and downs and ins and outs of that process.
You are, as we mentioned, a town planner by trade. Do you think this sort of an arrangement could be explored in a more formal sense in an effort to address the current housing crisis?
Look, I think it can. And part of it is that we need to facilitate people doing what I'm doing in a way that isn't a boarding house or isn't looking like some form of other commercial accommodation. It needs to be a genuine share household arrangement. And where that's done on a completely informal basis, or even with a little bit more rigour, I think that should be something that should be able to be done by anybody. At the end of the day, 13 million spare bedrooms in Australia. We don't need to fill a lot of those rooms to ease people's social isolation, provide some income for retired people, and solve quite a lot of our housing crisis.
That social element is such an important part for both sides, for the person renting out the rooms and for the people who are renting the rooms. What would you say to somebody who might be considering this but who are concerned about some of the potential risks, whether that be financial risks or perhaps they're an introvert and they're just reluctant to let people live in their home?
Well, if people are reluctant and they prefer to be on their own, well, that's fine. I'd suggest to people who are prepared to explore it, work through your existing social networks, work through people you know who know people, and that's often a good way to get started. And quite often, I've got a friend of mine in Melbourne, she's 84, she's had a university student with her now for 3 years, as that overseas student goes through her degree. So it's also worth getting in touch with university housing associations, agricultural labour hire companies, people like this, who can often bring people to you who've been through some sort of vetting check ahead of time. I mean, yes, it's always a risk, but I can say in 2.5 years, not a single negative experience.
Yeah, well, that's good for you, but what have your concerns been around the risks, the financial risks and the security risks?
Look, financial risks, for me, zero. They're either here or they're not here, and it's money I wouldn't otherwise have. In terms of security, I have upgraded my security systems to fingerprint recognition. $135 on eBay for front and back door. And I can unlock and lock the house remotely. And because it's a thumbprint, There's no key to copy. There's no code to share. So at the end of the day, I've got very tight control over who comes in and out of the house, whether I'm here or not.
Angus, is this something you want to continue doing?
Yes, it started, as I said, almost by accident, but the benefits I'm getting from having young people living with me socially and, to a degree financially, has absolutely made it something I want to continue to do.